There's something growing in your driveway right now, between the cracks, under your patio, maybe even in your garden. You've stepped on it. Pulled it. Sprayed it. But what if I told you that same weed contains more omega-3 per leaf than salmon? This plant survived the fall of empires. It fed the ancient world. It defies modern biology. And in 2022, scientists discovered it performs a photosynthetic trick that no other species on Earth can do. It grows in drought, thrives in heat, feeds humans and animals alike. And yet, the global herbicide industry spends billions trying to erase it. Not because it's dangerous. Not because it's invasive. But because they can't control it. So why have we been trained to destroy the most nutritious plant ever studied? And who benefits from keeping it buried under concrete? Its name is purslane, or Portulaca oleracea if you're asking a botanist. But to most people, it's just a weed. A nuisance. Something to poison and forget. Yet it's been quietly crawling through our world for thousands of years, thick red stems sprawling low to the ground, succulent green leaves shimmering with moisture, even in drought. It hides in plain sight, on sidewalks, in vacant lots, in the spaces between life and concrete. It's not some lab-grown miracle. It's not genetically modified. It's nature's original superplant, and it grows for free. But here's where it gets strange. In 2022, a team of scientists at Yale discovered that purslane does something no other plant on Earth can do. Something they described as a biological impossibility. This isn't just an ancient food source. This is a freak of nature, a 1 in a billion survival machine. But while modern science is just now catching up, ancient civilizations already knew the truth. Long before it was labeled a weed, purslane was power. In 1050 BC, someone in northern Greece sealed a small clay vessel with thousands of jet black seeds, each barely the size of a pinhead. When archaeologists opened it over 3,000 years later, they were stunned. What they found was purslane. By the 7th century BC, it appeared in sacred sanctuaries, etched into rituals and cultivated as a crop, not a curiosity. The Greek philosopher Theophrastus even left behind farming instructions in the 4th century BC, urging his readers to plant it alongside their most essential foods. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't ornamental. This was survival. The Roman Empire, known for conquering continents and engineering marvels, also cultivated purslane across Europe, Asia, and North Africa. It wasn't just part of the diet, it was foundational. In medieval Milan, a detailed record from 1288 lists every food consumed in the city. Purslane made the list, not tucked in the margins, but standing beside wheat, meat, and oil. It was a staple. Think about that. A plant growing wild in your driveway once sat at the heart of empires. But then it disappeared from dinner tables, not by accident, but by design. And just when you think the story ends in Europe, purslane reappears somewhere it was never supposed to be. For centuries, Western historians believed purslane only came to the Americas after 1492, brought over by European settlers. It made sense, right? An old world herb, spreading west with colonial expansion. Except, they were completely wrong. In 1672, early settlers in Massachusetts documented wild purslane growing in abundance. At first, it seemed like a stowaway from European ships, until archaeologists started digging deeper. In Ontario, purslane seeds were found dating back to 1350 AD, more than a century before Columbus. In Kentucky, seeds were uncovered from 800 BC. That's over 2,800 years ago. So what does that mean? It means purslane was already here. It means Native Americans had been cultivating it long before any Europeans arrived. It was part of the Eastern agricultural complex, grown alongside squash, sunflowers, and ancient grains. 2 civilizations. 2 continents. No contact. But both reached the same conclusion. This plant was essential. Was it carried across oceans by birds? By wind? Or is this another chapter of human history we've been taught to ignore? One thing is certain. They weren't eating it for decoration. They were eating it to live. And modern science is finally catching up to what ancient people already knew. In the 1960s, a curious physiologist named Ansel Keys launched the 7-country study, tracking the health of over 12,000 men across the globe. He wanted to understand one thing. Why were some people dropping dead from heart attacks, while others lived into their 90s with perfect arteries? The results were supposed to be simple. The countries with the fattiest diets, they should have had the worst heart health. But instead, Keys found a paradox. On the island of Crete, people were eating more than 35% of their calories from fat. Olive oil poured over everything. Rich stews, hearty meats. And yet, their rate of cardiovascular death was the lowest ever recorded. Lower than Japan. Lower than Finland. Lower than anywhere. At first, scientists praised olive oil and monounsaturated fats, the so-called Mediterranean magic. But something wasn't adding up. Decades later, in the 1980s, researchers pulled those frozen blood samples from storage and looked again, this time, for omega-3 fatty acids. What they found was shocking. The Cretans had triple the omega-3 levels of the Dutch. But they weren't eating more fish. They were eating something else. They were eating purslane. Raw in salads. Stewed in clay pots. Stirred into animal feed. The chickens ate purslane. The goats ate purslane. The people ate both. Their entire food chain was soaked in a plant we now rip from cracks in the sidewalk. And when scientists finally analyzed this mystery plant under a microscope, what they found defied logic. In 1992, Dr. Artemis Simopoulos, a leading expert in nutrition, finally ran the full lab analysis on purslane. What she found didn't just raise eyebrows, it broke the rules. Inside this lowly weed were levels of alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3, up to 400 milligrams per 100 grams of leaves. That's more than spinach, kale, or even flaxseed. But that wasn't the headline. Purslane also contained EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, a marine-based omega-3 you normally get only from fish and algae. Land plants aren't supposed to make EPA. There's no pathway. No enzyme. No mechanism. And yet, purslane makes it. At first, scientists thought it had to be contamination. Maybe seawater got into the samples. Maybe a lab error. So they ran the tests again. And again. Every time, purslane showed trace levels of marine omega-3s, growing out of dry soil. That's like discovering a tomato plant producing mercury. It shouldn't happen. But with purslane, it does. And that's just the beginning. It also contains 7x more vitamin E than spinach, 6x more beta-carotene than carrots, melatonin, glutathione, potassium, calcium, and magnesium in levels that rival multivitamins. All wrapped in a plant you've been trained to kill. It's one of the most nutrient-dense species ever recorded. And yet, it keeps rewriting the rules of nature. Because when scientists looked even deeper into how purslane grows, they found something no one had ever seen before. By the mid-90s, the whispers about purslane had turned into data. But scientists still needed clinical proof. That proof came from France, in a study that would shake the medical world to its core. It was called the Lion Diet Heart Study. Researchers gathered 605 heart attack survivors, each recovering, vulnerable, and desperate to avoid a second one. They were split into two groups. One followed the standard post-heart attack diet, low-fat, high-caution. The other group was given a bold, unorthodox plan, rich in omega-3s, walnuts, and purslane. The researchers didn't expect miracles. But what happened next was one After just a few years, the purslane group had 70% fewer deaths. It uses a rare combination of C4 and CAM photosynthesis, two systems that were never supposed to exist in the same plant. Not just in the same plant, but in the same cells, operating at the same time. During the day, purslane burns through photosynthesis like a crop on steroids. At night, it seals its pores and conserves water like a desert cactus. No other plant on Earth can do this. Yale researchers called it a superplant. But to the agriculture industry, it was a threat. Because here's the part they don't want you to know. Purslane can't be patented. Its seeds can't be sterilized. It doesn't need fertilizer, pesticides, or expensive irrigation. And worst of all, it reproduces freely, 200,000 seeds per plant, viable for up to 40 years. You can't own it. You can't license it. You can't make farmers buy it every year. That makes it the enemy. And so, the war began, not with science, but with chemicals. Today, the global herbicide market is worth over $40 billion. And at the center of this war chest is a single target, purslane. Companies like Bayer, Syngenta, and Corteva, names you see on seed packets, fertilizer bags, and glossy ads about feeding the world, have all developed products specifically engineered to kill this plant. Not because it's toxic. Not because it disrupts ecosystems. But because it disrupts profits. They deploy chemicals like mecaprop, isoxaben, and 2,4-D, a compound originally developed as a chemical weapon in World War II. After the war, it was repackaged for civilian use, and marketed directly to American homeowners in 1947. And it worked. Today, homeowners associations ban it. Gardening guides call it invasive. Agricultural extension offices publish eradication manuals. An entire infrastructure was built, not to protect ecosystems, but to train people to see food as the enemy. Because here's the brutal truth. You can't profit from a plant that doesn't need you. You can't engineer it. You can't copyright it. You can't force farmers to rebuy seeds every season. Purslane breaks the rules of modern agriculture. So instead of farming it, we're told to destroy it. And every time you spray your driveway, every time you pull a red-stemmed plant from your garden, you're helping the industry win. But that's not even the worst part. Because while we're killing it here, it's quietly saving lives elsewhere. While the world burns and crops fail under rising heat, purslane doesn't just survive. It accelerates. In areas where climate models predict total agricultural collapse, semi-arid zones, drylands, regions plagued by drought, this so-called wheat thrives. Where corn needs 20 inches of annual rain, purslane completes its life cycle on 6. Where soybeans shut down photosynthesis at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, purslane keeps growing, faster. Where wheat withers under salt-stressed soils, purslane digs in and flourishes. It doesn't and oppose, T require irrigation. It doesn't and oppose, T require fertilizer. And it doesn't and oppose, T care if the land is unfarmable by modern standards. It produces more omega-3 per acre than any cultivated crop. It feeds animals, nourishes humans, and replenishes soil health with every cycle. And here's the kicker. It grows in every climate zone where people live. Not in labs. Not in sealed greenhouses. In the wild. For free. If every backyard, vacant lot, and roadside ditch grew purslane instead of turf grass, we could revolutionize local food systems, without lifting a finger. It's already happening across India, where it's called kulfa. In Greece, Clostrida. In China, Machixian. In Mexico, verdolagas, sautéed with garlic and chili. Half the world never forgot. The other half was taught to poison it. But now, as crops fail, rivers dry up, and food prices skyrocket. The one plant designed for a future of chaos has been here all along. You don't need permission to grow purslane. You don't need a permit, a plot of land, or a seed catalog. You just need to notice it. Here's how to spot it. Thick, red stems that sprawl flat along the ground. Paddle-shaped, juicy leaves that are smooth and never hairy. When you break the stem, it oozes a clear, almost translucent gel. Tiny yellow flowers, often tucked between the leaves. That's it. No fancy equipment. No soil amendments. No waiting list at the community garden. It often pops up where the soil is poorest, driveways, patios, abandoned lots. And once you know what it looks like, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Here's what to do. Harvest it young, within the first 6 weeks, for the best texture and flavor. Eat it raw in salads for a lemony, slightly salty crunch. Sauté it like spinach, toss it in soups, stews, or blend it into smoothies. You can even pickle it, dry it, or freeze it for later. Want to spread it? Let a few plants go to seed in late summer. Each one produces hundreds of thousands of seeds. Collect them, save them, share them. With just one plant, you could seed an entire neighborhood. Because every person who learns to recognize purslane is one more person who stops seeing food as something that only comes from stores, and starts seeing it for what it really is. Power. Power that doesn't require permission. Power that grows from cracks in concrete. Power that refuses to die. We've been told that survival comes from supermarkets. That food needs packaging, chemicals, patents, and billion-dollar supply chains. But what if the most powerful nutrition on earth is the thing we've been taught to destroy? What if the weed growing in your driveway, the one that defies drought, heat, and science, isn't a nuisance, but a message? Purslane doesn't ask for anything. No irrigation. No fertilizer. No corporation. And maybe that's why it had to go. You can't control it. You can't own it. You can only recognize it, or keep stepping on it. The herbicide industry doesn't want you to know it's edible. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you to know it's healing. The agricultural industry doesn't want you to know it's already growing, without them. But now, you know. So the next time you see that red-stemmed, paddle-leafed plant crawling across your sidewalk, don't poison it. Pick it. Eat it. Share it. Because the future isn't hiding in a lab. It's been thriving in the cracks all along.